Hi guys, so this is part 2 of the moulded leather door card. If you haven't seen part 1, then I suggest you actually watch part 1 first. There's quite a lot of stuff in part 1 that you'll probably wonder what's going on when you watch part 2 first. So I'll leave a link in the description to part 1. So if you want to stop this video, go and see that, and then you can come back to this one later. If you don't, then just watch this one. Obviously it's now the following day. So in part 1 I got to this point of getting the leather onto the door card and getting it all clamped down and ready to be glued on. Now I need to now remove all these clamps and hope what I've done has worked. Can't put it off any longer. I'll remove this little one first here. So that's the first one off, and that has formed in there quite nice. You'll not be able to see it properly yet. Now my only worry about this is crushing the metal strip that goes behind here and making it a funny shape. Let's hope that's not happened. Sneak peek. So that has formed really nicely, you can see. Now there is a couple of little issues that I'm not completely happy with. Where the edge of the water is, you can see the leather change. So what I might have to do is, when I come to attach this permanently, is wet this bit here and then use the steamer, and that will actually even out the line. And we're not too bad at the top here, so we've got a nice crisp edge where I wanted it. So yeah, that is just how I planned, believe it or not. So what I need to do now is to remove the leather off the door card completely. So I'll flip it over, remove the staples, and then peel the leather off completely. It may actually have almost stuck itself to the board, but we'll be fine. I should just peel that off. So I'll flip it over. I'll get rid of this big heavy board. So the leather is still wet. I did expect it to be still wet. So I need to let this now dry a little bit. It will still have its shape. The board's probably going to be a little bit damp as well. So I'll get rid of all these staples. I don't want to scratch the leather, the good side anyway. So there we go. Even with it being off the board, it still held its shape. That's exactly what I wanted. So what I am going to do, I'm going to put this back onto the door card, but I'm going to wet this part of the leather here before I do it. I don't want to have this grain of the leather here like it is. It's quite obvious. So if I put the board back on and clamp it down again, so I don't need to actually staple the edges, I will just clamp this centre bit down, just so I kind of get rid of some of this grain, or at least even it out so it's not as obvious. There's a definite obvious transition where the leather was wet and the leather was dry here, and I actually don't want that. If it's a smooth transition, it's not too bad, but this quite smooth bit here, and then this grain bit down the centre is very obvious. We're not too bad here. I can deal with that when I actually attach the leather onto the card. It should all be dry by Monday. If I leave it over the weekend, it's Friday now, or Friday morning. So if I leave it over the weekend, it should be dry enough by Monday, and hopefully we'll have got rid of this this grain in the middle. So it's now Monday morning, and I've removed the clamps from the door card, and it's not looking too bad. It's gone a bit smoother in parts where I wanted it to, which is fine. We still have an issue here where there's a line, a definite line around here. So what I'll probably do with that is, once I've glued this centre panel in here, I will probably wet these areas, and then when I stretch it, it should kind of pull that out. It won't matter that it's wet when it goes on at all, because it's not getting glued on these parts here. It's only getting glued in the centre here and around where these apertures are for the catch and the lock. So we should be fine with that. I'll take it off the board because it's still on the board at the minute, and I'll show you how well it's formed. So there we go. So that's formed as well as I could expect, really. There are a few little issues where the holes in the card are. You can see they've left little marks there. The ones here where the grab handle goes won't be an issue whatsoever. It's just this one here and this one that is noticeable. But what I'm going to do is put this one down for a minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put foam in this centre part here, just 3mm swim foam, and I'm going to cut a little gap in the foam, probably about, let's say, 1/4 inch or so, something like that. So the leather will glue to the board there and only glue to the foam here. Because if I show you the original, so the original has padding underneath, but you can see where it's been welded. It's been welded here, that it's actually kind of it's recessed in. So I want to kind of create the same effect. When I put the foam in here, if I leave a little gap, I can create the same kind of effect, hopefully, or something similar. So I'm going to use this board here that I use to press the leather to form its shape. I'm going to use this to cut the 3mm foam out of, and then once I've glued it in, I will cut the recess out of the foam afterwards. So I'm going to glue this in place now. You might wonder why I use two different kinds of glue. One's a high heat glue, but it's a bit drier than this one. This is more liquid, so it's better for things like anything that's slightly absorbent. So obviously foam is absorbent, leather is the same, it's absorbent, it's fibrous, so you want a glue that can penetrate into that. This glue, because it's a bit drier, it doesn't penetrate quite as much into things like leather and wood. It still works, it still does the job, but not quite as well. So I'm using this one. This isn't a high heat glue, but I think it's rated to about 60 degrees, and the other one is 90 degrees ish, I think. That's centigrade, by the way, but it's actually better for things like foam. And I pin it into place. Things like this, it's quite hard to glue the whole thing and then try and place this into it. It'll be a bit of a nightmare. So what I do is I'll pin it into position so it can't move. 3 pins is always better than 2. and then I'll fold this back here, glue this bit here, and then take the pins out, fold the other bit back, and then I'll glue that bit back. As always, when you first use a glue, always spray it into the bin. You never know how it's going to come out of the nozzle when you first start. That's the same with anything that comes out of a spray tin. You don't know how it's going to spray straight away. Don't try and use paint straight away, straight out the tin, and same with glue. I always spray it into the bin just to make sure. And I do that in between sprays as well, because you get a build up of glue on the nozzle here. I always try and pull that off the nozzle, and then I'll spray a bit in the bin just to make sure the glue is spraying correctly. Also, when you spray glue onto something like this, quite thin scrim foam, it does make the foam expand a little bit. So this becomes bigger now. This will be bigger than it was before. And you spray it a bit well. So I'm going to use the pen, and I'm going to just draw a line with the pen like that. That'll give me an even line that I'm cutting to. So I'm going to place the leather on top now and just check it all again. So I think we'll be fine with that. So that is in a perfect position. So getting this absolutely perfect is really essential. So I've only got one shot at actually gluing this in place. I'm going to use the same technique, flip it over, glue one part, and then glue the other part. I can't use pins on this, obviously, because if I use pins, then there'll be holes in the leather. Just a small sandbag. So I'm going to use, position that there, that won't mark the leather. It will stop it moving. Now it's really essential that I get lots of glue into this groove here. And there's no bits on the leather. So spray into the bin again, and then just getting glue in that groove. So when I come to glue this, I'm going to glue it wet at the minute, just to make sure it's in the correct position. Happy to lay that on now. Not going to put any pressure here. I want to put pressure along there. Now the glue is very wet at the minute in the groove, so I'm going to leave it for a short while before I put pressure on it. Oops. So I'm just using my thumbnail just to go around the edge. So I've got a little bit of a crease along here, where I folded it back. So I'm just going to use the steamer and just steam that out a little bit. And any other creases that are in there, try and get rid of. So the crease has gone. So you can see that I've got the kind of effect that I wanted here. So I think it's been long enough now. I will remove these clamps. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. So they've glued really well, just how I wanted. I'm glued to the wood. So I will now cut all the way into the corner. I'm just gonna make sure it's glued a little bit better there. So this one is the same. And I will test fit one of these. Very tight. But I think we will be fine with that. I'll turn the board over and start to staple the leather on the back. Now here, it's got to be glued. So I'll start on the corners. Something I forgot to do. Yeah, I'm just going to wet the leather a little bit around here. I'm not going to over wet it, just want it to blend in a little bit where it was stretched before. Definitely want to stretch this corner here. That should do. So I'll start on this corner first. And then do this corner. Don't want to overstretch this, but I want to make sure I get rid of the wrinkles. I'm going to just keep flipping it over. As you can see at this end here, I have wrinkles, so I'm going to just make sure that I can get them all out. Yep, happy there. So with this, I'm trying to, when I'm pulling this, I'm pulling it that way as well. So I'm pulling it there and then that way. So you see, like that. Because I've got all this here that I need to get rid of. So I'm pulling it into the corner. So this here is going to be quite tricky. We've got a lot going on there. So what I need to try and do is to pull it, get rid of some of this way. So yeah, that's going to be very tricky, that bit there. Just checking, make sure this fits well. Yep, that fits nice. So now I need to glue this top edge. While I'm at that glue tacky, I will trim off the excess here. Before I glue this all the way over, I'm going to check the other side, make sure it's wrinkle free. It's not. This is what I was worried about here. So what I will do, which will help to get rid of the wrinkles, I will glue this bit here. And I'll use some steam. I may have to remove that staple, I don't know yet. So let's take most of this leather off here. I'm just going to sand it down now, because this lip here, the little groove, has to fit around the metal bit and the leather. Now, because of how it was before, and the vinyl was quite thin vinyl, it's not left me a lot of room. So I'm going to have to just take off a tiny bit of leather off this top edge just to try and get this in. Just to make life a little bit easier, I'll put a bit of silicone spray down the edge and see if I can get it in. There we go, that one's in. So I'm going to have to work my way down, trying to get these rivets into position. Oh, that was a bit of a mission. So we're now in the right place. So the door card is now done. Needs a bit of a clean off, but I'll just let you have a look. So there we have it. That's the door card now. It's not looking too bad. Obviously I've still got the other one to do. Now I've learned quite a lot from doing this one. So when I do the next one, I will wet all the leather. I think that's the main thing. Rather than wetting the bits that I did, which were just around here and then these two areas here. But yeah, but other than that, it's not looking too bad. I'll just show you the original. So that's the original, and then that's the one in leather. So it looks pretty similar. Obviously different materials. This is a vinyl door card and it's showing its age now, and this is the leather one. So it's pretty similar, and just now got to do the other one. So if you like that video, you found it informative, give it a thumbs up. Hope you subscribed, and I'll see you again. Thanks for watching. Bye.